Hello, welcome to the Vibrant Health Show. I'm Dr. Shannyn Pearce. Today's topic is kind of a controversial one, which is always fun. Those are my favorite topics, but there's so much misinformation about cholesterol, dangers of cholesterol, best ways, causes, all the things. And since February is Heart Health Month, we're going to dive in together on cholesterol. So let me tag and get everybody ready here. All right. So I'm going to go through a lot of information. Take notes. This will be a good one to come back and rewatch because there's going to be a lot of stuff in here. But the first thing I want to start with is just there is not a one size answer for this cholesterol conversation, okay? Too much dangerous cholesterol is absolutely dangerous. However, majority of what's going on with the treatment of cholesterol and high cholesterol and genetic cholesterol is really poorly managed, and it's coming with a lot more risks than it is benefits. And just like most of our medical system, we're not looking for root causes. We're looking for a medication to alter a number, and then we're calling it a day, and we're leaving people with these really dangerous underlying root causes, which is still ending up in heart disease and heart attacks and strokes, even with normal cholesterol. So don't get me wrong, it's serious, but it's being really poorly handled. So the first thing I want to touch on when it comes to cholesterol is what traditional medicine does, right? We have been told cholesterol is bad. It's typically from your genetics and from eating high cholesterol foods. And the only answer is to get on a statin early and stay on it forever. And that's the medical approach. And they just want to see that cholesterol number, typically your total cholesterol and your LDL, come down, right? That is the goal. Well, unfortunately, most of that isn't true anymore. There's all of this new research coming out showing that, in fact, most high cholesterol is coming from the body making too much of it. And we'll go over that in detail in just a second. And not even from the foods you're eating fully, right? I'm not saying go eat all kinds of crazy stuff, but 80% of high cholesterol is coming from physiological processes in the body and not just eating foods that contain cholesterol, which tend to be healthier foods if it's the healthy type of cholesterol. So that alone is not correct. And then when we first started prescribing statin medications like Lipitor and Crestor and different statin medications, at first, because there wasn't a lot of research, it was deemed very safe. They're like, oh, very low reactions. Everyone can be on this. Start them on it early, leave them on it for life. Like, this is a pretty well-tolerated medication. Well, that was when we were all kind of guinea pigs, right? When we first started using statin medications 50 some years ago. Now, more bodies of research are coming out after we've been using them longer that there are very serious side effects. And this is no longer one of those medications that should just be given to anyone because it's well tolerated. And I'm going to go through a list of things that it has been linked through studies to cause and create, some of which might be symptoms you've developed since starting a statin medication, but didn't realize they were connected, right? We're not often told, like, no, it could be causing these other things. And then some very serious increased risk of disease factors being on these statin medications. So I say this and I give you all of this information to really encourage you, before just jumping on a medication, dive deeper into what's causing the high cholesterol in the first place. What can you do to help minimize your risk of heart disease and stroke, lowering cholesterol to a healthy level without putting yourself at risk from some of these medications, right? There are always options. Unfortunately, I just don't think we're told often enough that we have those options. So feel free to ask questions and put comments in as you watch through this. I know there's probably going to be some different opinions and things on this topic in particular. I'm going to open up our comment section. Okay, so let's start with typical side effects that have been well documented when it comes to statin medications. Again, I just want you thinking, especially, unfortunately, statin medications are the #1 prescribed medication in the world, the most prescribed medication, which means a lot of you guys watching right now are probably on a statin medication or have been told you probably should be, right? That they want you on a cholesterol lowering medication. So I think it's very, very important that you understand those risks. So a list of things that have absolutely been tied to taking these statins, and also the higher your dose, obviously the more risk that you're at. So the larger your dose, the more these things become probable for you to experience. But one of the ones I've been noticing a ton lately is people coming to me with chronic pain, chronic fatigue, myalgia, joint pain, just feeling like a heaviness in their body. And that is a very well documented side effect of being on statin medications. So if you're having these aches and these pains and these muscle pains and these joint pains, can you think back, and if you're taking a statin medication, can you think back to the time you started that medication and have these started since then or gotten worse since then? I would say that's probably the number one thing I notice. And the cool thing is when they stop taking the statin medication, typically those joint pains and muscle pains and achy and fatigue and heaviness resolve within a couple of weeks. Like, it's pretty wild to see that it goes away pretty quickly because it is directly linked to taking those statin medications, because cholesterol is needed, right, for muscle repair and joint health. So when we're lowering it artificially, we're getting these abnormal reactions. So joint pain and muscle pain is a big one. Number two, cognitive decline. This has been really well documented. And I was reading actually on one of the Lipitor websites yesterday, like, oh, well, the cognitive, impairment isn't serious because it goes away when people stop taking the medication. Well, wait a minute, but you're telling people to stay on this medication forever, but they're saying it's not that big deal that you're losing your memory, that you can't think of your words, that you have crazy brain fog, because if you stop the medication, it comes back. So it's not like we're making permanent damage, but yet it's well documented that being on these statin medications really alter cognitive function, including mood, depression, and anxiety skyrocket when you get put on these statin medications. So joint pain, brain fog, anxiety, and depression, these are things kind of typical complaints that women come to me with, and asking them if they're on a statin medication, how long they've been on it, and have these got worse since then. A lot of times there is a link. Not that it's the only cause, but there is a big link. And I just want to make sure you guys are understanding that they're not riskless medications like maybe we've been told to believe for a very long time, right? More serious than that, you can actually get muscle wasting. You can start losing muscle mass. It's been linked with liver problems, kidney failure. And the newest research studies, which they actually launched an entire lawsuit against these statin medication companies for not divulging this information, but being on a statin medication has been linked to not increasing the risk of diabetes, causing diabetes. And the companies knew this and didn't divulge that information. And there's currently, the lawsuit started in 2022, and it's currently still going on because they know these things are true and we're not being told these risks. So you have this person who goes in, they have high cholesterol, but not a whole lot of other symptoms, right? They see high cholesterol in your blood labs. They're like, oh my gosh, I need a statin medication. You get put statin medication, and then 2 years later, all of a sudden you're pre-diabetic. They're like, that's weird. It didn't really change anything with my nutrition or my exercise. I'm not sure why that's happening with my blood sugars. A couple of years later, you're full-blown diabetic. You're not sure why. So now you're on more medications. And now they're linking this back directly, right? Like, there's actual research showing that these things link together to getting type 2 diabetes. That's serious, right? These are big things. So knowing that, I just want you to make really good choices about what you choose to do for your body, right? And what we know now, again, all research backed, is that just as many people die of a heart attack with normal cholesterol numbers as people with elevated cholesterol. What I want you to understand about that is we've been told, again, over and over again, that cholesterol equals heart disease equals heart attack, super dangerous. Oh my God, if your cholesterol is high, like, it's the end of the world. We need to stop medication right away. This is, the number one cause of these issues. Yet when we see people who truly have heart disease, heart attacks, and strokes, and we look at them, 1 in 2, right? Half of the people have normal cholesterol levels, which means there's something else going on. And then there was follow-up studies, 40 different journal follow-up studies that looked at when people actually got on a statin medication and lowered their cholesterol, did it truly lower the risk of heart disease, stroke, heart attack? And the research came out inconclusive. We're not even really seeing facts anymore, that now that there's more studies, right, being done by more bodies of people, not the few people who wanted, again, in a research study, you can make just about anything come out that you want to come out. So as more of them happen, we're really starting to see, wait a minute, not only do we not see a really dramatic decrease in actual risk of heart disease, but now we're seeing all these other symptoms pop up with it. Is it worth it anymore? Should that be the standard course of treatment for high cholesterol? Holistically, functional medicine-wise, We believe no, right? There's a lot of other things going on. So now that I've given you all the bad news, right, but I really want to clear up some of those misconceptions, let's dive into number one. What does cholesterol actually do? Most people have no idea. Cholesterol's just become this villain, right? We're like, oh, cholesterol's bad. It needs to come down. We're checking it at all of our well checks. And the second it's a couple points over normal, everyone's, suggesting medications. But cholesterol is a very, very helpful substance in the body. It has a ton of jobs and functions that we need it for. And I won't have time to go into it today, but the way that we're testing cholesterol medically, when we're just looking at total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, and now at least they've added like your cholesterol ratios. But when we're just looking at those numbers as our standard of is it good or bad, those numbers actually don't tell you a whole lot. So the whole LDL is bad and HDL is good. That's not true. They both have functions. What's really true when it comes to cholesterol is the size and the density of the particles. The ones that are dangerous are cholesterol molecules that are small and hard. Yet we're just getting this big LDL range, but we don't know of that LDL. Is it the dangerous kind? Is it the not dangerous kind? Should we be worried? Should we not be worried? But we're not testing in enough depth to understand what those numbers look like. So that's, again, a problem. But even aside from the testing, we need cholesterol. And I'm going to go through and tell you all the beautiful things that cholesterol does in your body. And the cool thing is the same functions that we need it for are the root causes of why it goes high, right? If we understand what it does in the body, we can also understand that when it elevates, it's trying to tell us something, right? Holistically, that's what we believe. Every symptom, every abnormal lab value, anything that you're dealing with is always a warning sign, right? It's not always the problem, hence cholesterol. Cholesterol is not the problem. Cholesterol is your warning sign. If we start asking based on all these functions of cholesterol, which one do I most likely have an imbalance in, and investigate that area, there's lots of natural, very effective ways that you can balance cholesterol naturally without needing medications, right? So let's go through this list. Number one, cholesterol actually helps you make vitamin D. The sun hitting your skin converts cholesterol into vitamin D. Vitamin D, I did a whole 30-minute episode on all the reasons why vitamin D is so important. But most people, right, we routinely check vitamin D levels. 7 out of 10 people that I check are usually deficient, like pretty severely deficient in vitamin D. So think about this. Remember, what cholesterol does can also give us an idea of why it goes up. If you're severely deficient in vitamin D and you're not converting enough cholesterol to make vitamin D, your body says, oh, well, something's wrong. We're not getting enough vitamin D. Maybe if I give her more cholesterol, right, I'll have more of that to convert to vitamin D in order to support immune system and hormone health and all the membranes on the cells that vitamin D and cholesterol are important for. So something as simple as a vitamin D deficiency could be the reason that your cholesterol is elevated. Yet nobody says, hey, let's see if we can just, get your vitamin D levels up and then recheck cholesterol in 6 months and see what that looks like. That's rarely the conversation. So number one, get your vitamin D levels checked. Number two, make sure that you're doing something to bring your vitamin D levels back up. I'll put links in the comments of my favorite vitamin D supplements. Really important, especially if you're doing it for cardiovascular health, that your vitamin D is paired with both K1 and K2 for proper circulation, for arterial health, to make sure that it's going to the right places. So also if you're somebody who takes vitamin D and you don't really see your numbers go up very much, making sure that you have a really good quality vitamin D is not only protective for your immune system, but also your cardiovascular system and also your cholesterol. So maybe it's as simple as that, right? We just need to optimize vitamin D. The body won't feel like it needs to elevate more cholesterol. That's potential number one. Number two, cholesterol is the building block for all of our hormones. Truly, all of our steroid hormones. That includes estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, a bunch of all those other hormones in our body that majority of people are depleted in, right? How many of you know that you have low hormones? You have low testosterone, you have low progesterone. If you've had fertility issues, if you've had any blood labs done and show low hormone, the building block, cholesterol, literally makes all of those hormones. So potentially, right, its function can also tell us its root cause if you have deficient hormone, right? So in my case, we did our insurance labs, 15 years ago, when I had really deficient progesterone. And I've always ate healthy. I'm not overweight. I don't have any of the other risk factors. And my cholesterol always comes back slightly elevated, right? Before I fix my hormones. I didn't know back then what I know now. And I was always like, that's weird. Like, I don't feel like I'm the type of person that should have high cholesterol. Well, turns out I had incredibly deficient estrogen and progesterone. So my body, being brilliant, was like, okay, this lady has no hormones, right? Which is not good for anybody. Let's see if I can just give her more cholesterol. And then in turn, maybe we'll make some more hormones and we can try and dig ourselves out of this mess, right? Your body's always doing something on purpose. So once I really just focused on my hormones and realized that was my problem, my cholesterol's back to normal naturally without having to do anything else, change anything else. I just needed to optimize my hormones. Number one, if you don't know what your hormone levels are, you start there. Every woman on the face of the planet needs to know what her hormone levels look like. So testing your hormones properly, again, my favorite way is the Dutch test. I'm going to put that link below as well. The Dutch test is on sale for the month of February because it's so important to test hormones and adrenals when it comes to heart health, hormone health, know your estrogen levels and your estrogen pathways, but also deficiencies are highly linked to increased cholesterol. So what if you optimize your hormones? What do you think your cholesterol is going to do? It doesn't feel the necessity to be high anymore, right? Like your body's so smart. We just don't listen to it nearly enough. I see a couple of questions. I'll try and get back to that. Awesome. So low or deficient hormones, big problem. Next up, we have metabolic issues. So cholesterol is stored. Majority of it is created, but it also circles back to your liver and is directly linked to your gallbladder. It also helps make bile salts to help you burn fat. So when you think cholesterol, you cannot think cholesterol without thinking liver and gallbladder. So if you have a poorly functioning liver because of toxins and inflammation, infections, which we're going to talk about in a second, or if you have a sluggish gallbladder, or if you're the person who doesn't have a gallbladder. If you don't have a gallbladder, I would bet, right, around the time you had your gallbladder removal was about the time you started to slowly see your cholesterol climb. And maybe it's got worse and worse and worse over the last few years because if we don't have the right process through the liver, we don't have enough bile salts to really help dissolve and eliminate the excess fat, your body is going to have a harder time processing cholesterol. So liver and gallbladder, maybe that's your underlying cause. So if you're the person who's like, yeah, I know I've had some gallbladder issues in the past or some liver issues, or maybe I don't have a gallbladder, the number one thing you need to do is start some liver gallbladder support, right? I have my favorite one. Again, I'll put that link below, but support your liver and your gallbladder. Give your body back some bile salts so your body doesn't feel like it has to elevate cholesterol to make more on its own, right? Like your body's trying to help you. Don't make it work so hard. Give it the support that it needs. So in particular, if you do not have a gallbladder, you need to be on some type of gallbladder support ongoing, right? You're missing an organ. You need to give your body back the function that it's missing, which is really those bile salts, being able to store enough bile salts to be usable by the body. So giving it back a good liver gallbladder support is huge. And again, potentially the piece you're missing just to allow your body to process cholesterol better and be able to minimize the risk of having that high cholesterol. You guys follow me? I know I'm giving you a ton today, but this is such an important conversation. Like this literally kills people not knowing this information. It damages their life. Like you need to understand all the pieces of this puzzle because again, most prescribed medication, one of the highest killers of all people, men and women, is heart disease. Like this is a really, really serious thing to make sure that you understand properly. Okay, next up, cholesterol is also a buffer. Okay, so what does that mean? It buffers from inflammation in the body. Its job is to go in and buffer your arteries to make sure, like, if there's any inflammation or if there's any damage to the artery wall, cholesterol is supposed to go in and repair and buffer, right? Keep that inflammation out, keep infections from crossing the bloodstream. So that's its job. Now, when we make it work too hard, all of a sudden, instead of just buffering, now it starts to layer on and then it starts to plaque. Then the plaquing is what causes the damage and causes the risk, right? But think about it. If your body is building up plaque because it's in there trying to buffer inflammation, it's trying to reduce infection, maybe dealing with those things would be a smart idea, right? If I could reduce my internal inflammation, my body wouldn't feel the necessity to make so much cholesterol. If I could eradicate any of these chronic underlying infections, some of the ones that have been highly linked to elevated cholesterol are H. pylori, any type of parasitic infection, especially blastocystis, and yeast overgrowth in the gut. Those have been highly documented. I would also say viral load. There hasn't been as much research with that, but Epstein-Barr virus, herpes viruses, any of those heavy viral loads are going to cause your body to want to make more cholesterol because it's trying to protect from these chronic infections. So if you know, right, if you know you've had Epstein-Barr, if you know you get cold sores, if you know you have any of this viral load, if you have ulcers, if you have digestive issues, if you have inflammation in your gut, those are all reasons your cholesterol goes up. Remember, cholesterol is not the problem. He's not the villain. He's trying to help, right? It's doing all these jobs. We're not making it easy on our cholesterol. We're making it do so much more, and we're making an environment where it has to be elevated to help us not develop further disease, right? So stop blaming cholesterol and stop wanting just to get that number down. That's not the answer. Correct the cause based on the function, right? This is all science. These are things that cholesterol really does in the body. If you can support those functions, body heals, right? That's the job of the body. So inflammation and infections are a huge one. And then lastly, I want to touch on food and genetics. So it's not that these things are not relevant conversations. They're just such a small piece of the puzzle when you look at the cholesterol conversation. Again, we mentioned the statistic that 80% of your cholesterol is made because of everything else that I just mentioned. It's made from hormones. It's made from the cholesterol under your skin. It's made from the liver. It needs for the bile salts. It's made in your tissues. It has to buffer for inflammation and infection. Most of your cholesterol is coming from those processes. Only 20% is coming from your food. Now, I absolutely want you to clean up your food, but it's not reducing cholesterol-rich foods. It's reducing trans fats. It's reducing inflammatory foods. It's reducing toxins and chemicals from our food sources. That is safer than eliminating all these foods that have cholesterol in them. Remember, we need cholesterol. If you want healthy hormones, good vitamin D, brain function, if you want your liver working, we need cholesterol. We just don't want the bad inflammatory sources. So food is important, but often, especially when somebody comes to me for help with these things, typically they're the person who says, I eat good, right? I really feel like I've made the changes. I've moved my body. I'm eating well, and my cholesterol's still not moving. Where do I go from there? Then you start looking into these other sources. If you eat terribly, yes, start there, right? Absolutely start there. And then we can work on the deeper things after. Food first, but most people, you're like, no, I don't think that's where it's coming from. I want to know what's really causing this. So food is important. And then genetics, right? There is that familial high cholesterol gene that some people do truly have, and there is a genetic predisposition. But I will say this about any genetics ongoing. Genetics will always be present, but there have to be other triggers to turn them on. So if you only just have a gene for this high cholesterol, or a gene for an autoimmune disease, or a gene for whatever, just the gene alone is not going to express itself. Typically, there are three things that it takes to trigger a gene to turn on. One is you have the genetic predisposition. That's a real thing. Number two, you have to have a trigger. A trigger is something like a major stressor, inflammation, an infection, tanking your hormones, all the things that we just talked about. Those are the stressors, the triggers that turn on the gene. And then the third thing that is linked to turning on almost all genetic predispositions is leaky gut, is having intestinal hyperpermeability. Because once the gut is compromised, all of these things get into the bloodstream, and now we have that widespread immune response. If it stays contained in the gut like it's supposed to, most people never actually express their genetic predispositions because your body is able to deal with those weaknesses. So I don't blame anything on genetics. I also don't believe the whole, well, it's my genetics, we're all going to have it. No, BS. You're just doing the same things as everyone else. That's why everyone has it. If you eliminate those triggers, reduce as many of them as you can, really protect and support the gut, always working on gut health, keep your stress low and live a healthy lifestyle, you can have a genetic predisposition with never, ever getting the actual condition or disease related to it. But most people don't look at it that way, right? We're told we have a genetic issue and we just kind of roll with that. So not that it's not a real thing. Genetics are real, but epigenetics trump genetics every day, right? You see people all the time who have the exact same genetics and don't end up with the same diseases because triggers and the health of your gut and your immune system matter. So making sure that we're really looking at those factors as well. I'm looking at a couple of questions. Used to say balance, but saying high cholesterol is high cholesterol and doesn't matter which type. No, types matter dramatically. And I think that's going to have to be a whole other video because it's a detailed one. I've had mine measured. I have fluffy cholesterol. Fluffy cholesterol is what you want, right? That's the good cholesterol that bounces around. It kind of does its job in the arteries. It comes back to the liver nicely. Big fluffy cholesterol is not dangerous cholesterol. That is normal. But again, if we're not checking for the nice big puffy ones versus the small hard ones, we don't know. You can't just look at a total number of LDL, HDL, and total cholesterol and know if you're at risk or not. My vitamin D is the only one I take now. Tried so many. Yes, my vitamin D is the only one you take now. Thank you. And your levels are finally rising. I'm telling you, missing the K1 and K2 with your D and absorbability makes all of the difference. So thank you for that. Unsolicited. I'm on late. Come back and watch replay. Yes, absolutely. Great questions, guys. And if you're watching more and some more come up, let me know. But I want to end you with just a couple of next steps. Number one, you know I love testing. I know that's not always the first place people can start, right? If there's a cost issue or whatever's going on, I understand that. If you are the person who has had chronically high cholesterol, maybe you're on a statin medication and you don't feel good on it, or they're pressing for a statin medication and you really don't want to start the medication, I do believe that better testing is where you're at. Now, if you're the person who, you just have kind of like borderline high cholesterol, they're saying watch and see, you don't have as many concerns with that, then you're the person who can actually try. I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions of supplements and things you can add in, a couple of nutrition changes you can make. We're going to do a whole video about that next week. You can start there. But if you're someone who really has a cholesterol issue or wants to get off those medications, the two places I highly suggest you start testing, number one is your hormones, your adrenals. If you're a woman especially, low cholesterol is I'm talking from my own experience. Low hormone and high cholesterol, that's probably the most common link I see when somebody can't get their cholesterol under control. And then checking your gut, right? If you've never properly evaluated and checked your gut, the gut microbiome is so important for healthy cholesterol and liver function and gallbladder function and all of these things. Really doing better testing if you're someone who knows that you have a big issue, because it's not an area of your health you want to mess around with, right? Cardiovascular health is very important, and getting better testing will help you make better decisions. Now, if you're somebody who's like, I don't think I'm really at that point yet, but I want to know what I can do to optimize my cholesterol, my holistic nutritionist, her name is Amanda, on February 22nd, she's going to do an entire Heart Healthy Foods episode for you guys, going over cardiovascular food plans and what's best for heart health. So make sure you tune in for that food-wise. Supplement-wise, there are 3 things I recommend you start. I know there's a lot of talk about like red yeast rice and some other things. And not that I don't think those are good at all. I just don't think they're always the best thing for everybody. So what I'm going to recommend today are things that will help with the physiology. Those are things that can help reduce inflammation and are kind of specific to bind up some cholesterol, but it's also not addressing the underlying cause, right? So they're not bad. They're more natural. That's fine for some people. But the 3 things I'm going to suggest today are really working on underlying physiology, which is always the best place to start. So the first one's a vitamin D supplement. If you're not on a good, high quality vitamin D with K1 and K2, you start there. If you haven't had your vitamin D levels checked, I would definitely look at those, because you also want to see that they're changing and rising. But especially in the winter months, which most of you are in climates where it's winter right now, adding 5,000 IUs of vitamin D every day throughout those winter months is great. And we really want to get our vitamin D levels up to about 60 to 80 in the bloodstream, right? So standard medical labs will say 30. No way. 60 to 80 is going to be what we want. 5,000 IUs, which is usually 125 mcgs. I know the labeling has changed for vitamin D recently, and usually you won't see it in IUs anymore. But vitamin D is so simple. It's so cost effective, right? It's one of the cheapest supplements to add, but it has a big punch, right? It really makes a big difference. So if you haven't added that yet, that's huge. Number 2 is a new obsession of mine. You're probably going to hear me talk about this a lot because I love it and I take it every day, and I've been like floored with the difference that it makes. It's called Micro Boost. It's made by B Minerals. I'm going to put the link below. But what it is it has 70 different minerals, electrolytes, nutrients. It's different things that help support gut lining, reduces inflammation, supports brain function. But what I really like about it in this cardiovascular conversation is it has all of the different minerals and cofactors that are required for healthy heart function, which includes the proper beating rhythm, so your heart rate, blood pressure, cholesterol production. And most people know to take a multivitamin, but are you taking a multi-mineral? Are you getting all of the other cofactors that actually make your vitamins usable? And most people, that answer is no. And I've been telling everyone this week, because I've been taking it for the last couple of months myself. I do a lot of stuff, right? And I don't generally feel bad. So I don't usually feel a big difference when I take something. I'm just taking it because either I need it for my labs or it's that season. But this was one of those things that adding it in, I could tell a big difference in just cognitive function, energy, sleep quality, feeling like my body was finally supported from some of the things I was deficient in. And what I love about it is you're getting 70 of these minerals and nutrients and vitamins. It has some good methylated B vitamins in there, which is huge for heart health, all in one little ounce of liquid that you put in your water that doesn't taste like anything. This used to take 4 different supplements to find all in one place. So forgive me in advance, I'm going to talk about this a lot because I love it. I feel like it's super effective. It's cost effective for the amount of things you're getting in one bottle, and it's so easy to take. I'm obsessed. So for actual just heart function, heart health, making sure you have all the right nutrients, micronutrients, things that make your heart and cardiovascular system work well, the Micro Boost is my favorite. Truly, I'm obsessed. So I'll put that link below for anyone who wants to try that out. And then lastly, liver gallbladder complex. Liver gallbladder complex. Your liver processes and makes most of your cholesterol. If you're not supporting your liver, you're not going to have healthy cholesterol levels. So the liver gallbladder complex is great for everybody, but especially if you don't have a gallbladder. You need to add this in daily for the rest of your life. You're missing an organ. So anybody should take it. It still helps support a natural gallbladder if you have it, but in particular, people who do not have a gallbladder need to be adding that in. So if you're looking for an easy place to start, vitamin D, Micro Boost, liver gallbladder complex, choose one, choose all 3, right? Start somewhere. It's not about perfection. It's not about trying to do all the things at the same time. But if there's something that I touched on today that you think in your head, ooh, that's probably my problem, or yeah, I'm definitely missing that, or I don't do that for supplement. Choose one thing you learned today, work on that, implement that, and then when you have that under control, move to the next step, right? I just want to give you options and resources. You choose which one fits you best for where you're at. If you're just looking for nutrition changes, make sure you check back with us on the 22nd. Amanda's going to do a great job of that. But this is such an important topic. Don't let the influences, right? The voices that are very loud force you into doing something you're uncomfortable with. You get to choose, right? And there are other ways, there are natural ways that I don't think you're always being told about. So check the physiology, find the root cause, and the body typically knows how to heal itself if we're giving it the right tools. I'll put all the links below. People ask me how to order. You can come back and do the replay. And yes, we didn't go all over LDL and triglycerides today, but we're going to go back through that in another video. That's a whole video on its own. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you have extra questions, put them down. If you're watching later on YouTube, put them down. I'll come back and answer all of those. And then I will post all those links I talked about here in just a couple minutes. And we'll be back next week. See you then.